Today in Oregon and across the country, hazardous materials are a part of our everyday lives. From manufacturing to agriculture to transportation to the threat of terrorism, hazardous materials either are used by people directly or are transported daily through communities where we work and live. A hazardous material is any substance that poses an unreasonable risk to life, the environment, or property when not properly contained. Everyone can understand the danger of a rail car leaking poisonous gas into the atmosphere. Most hazardous materials, however, are quite commonplace. A department store delivery truck, for example, contains items from virtually every DOT hazard class. 1 gallon of gasoline, vaporized and ignited, has an explosive heat release of 20 sticks of dynamite. And some products that are completely safe in their individual containers generate unknown toxic byproducts when mixed with others.
The Office of State Fire Marshal realized the need for a mitigation plan for hazardous material releases. We developed a program comprised of regional state teams. We partner with other local, state, and federal agencies to enhance our response by training and working together.
If something goes wrong, your secondary exit egress is going to be to the west.
In 1989, the Oregon legislature authorized the Office of State Fire Marshal to establish a statewide hazardous materials emergency response system. At that time, few communities had the resources to train and equip their emergency responders to strict new federal standards so they could safely respond to spills and other incidents involving hazardous substances. Without these resources, nearly all Oregon communities were at extreme risk from a hazardous chemical spill. In fact, most fire departments were legally limited in their ability to respond to such incidents due to the lack of specialized training and personal protective equipment.
What I'd like to do is first locate that and take a measurement. Make sure you guys are not figure out what you're in, okay? 150 yards downwind and up to 150 yards crosswind.
The statewide hazardous materials emergency response system was designed to supplement local emergency service agencies with regional hazardous materials teams that would have the training and equipment to meet new federal standards. Oregon was the first state in the nation to respond to this lack of emergency response preparedness with a statewide regional hazardous materials emergency response program.
The major reason for the state of Oregon to have an emergency response hazmat team is its cost effectiveness. If every city, district, and county had to have their own hazmat team, with the training and the costs of the teams, it would be extremely expensive.
After studying past incidents, inventories of chemicals from almost 15,000 firms in Oregon, and quantities of hazardous materials transported throughout the state, the Fire Marshal developed a statewide system of regional response teams. The Office of State Fire Marshal then contracts with local fire departments to train and equip their personnel to provide hazardous materials emergency response teams in each region. Some regional teams are formed from single fire districts, counties, or cities. Others are formed from several jurisdictions. The result is a network that can provide advanced OSHA hazmat technician level and specialist services anywhere in the state in a safe and timely manner.
Maintaining the equipment and qualified personnel on hazardous materials response teams requires hours of training. Team members undergo hundreds of hours of training using specialized equipment to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to safely handle the wide variety of chemical and situations they may encounter. In today's society, we may respond to incidents on roadways, industrial areas, government buildings, and even residential structures.
Hey, I'm glad you're here. We have an anhydrous ammonia leak. I've got 8,000 pounds back in that back building.
Okay, thank you, sir.
When a hazardous materials incident occurs, the local agency responds to the scene, establishes command and control, and assesses the type and size of the incident.
Firecom 3411 is on scene. We have a confirmed ammonia leak.
If the incident commander determines a hazardous material is involved and their available resources cannot successfully control the problem, the incident commander contacts the team's local jurisdiction's dispatch center or the state notification point, ORS, the Oregon Emergency Response System.
Have we got a hazmat team coming?
No, we have not.
Firecom, this is command. Dispatch the hazmat team to this location. This is 3103 calling. We have an anhydrous ammonia leak. Notification to ORS regarding this leak.
State hazmat team responses are designed on a 3-level tiered system.
Reported hazardous materials leak.
Incidents classified as level 1 are readily controlled and stabilized by first responders. Hazmat team personnel provide technical assistance only, either over the phone or on site. A level 2 response requires the special resources of a hazmat team for control and stabilization. Level 3 requires full activation of not only the hazmat team, but other outside agencies for support.
We've got an anhydrous leak that's leaking actively from about 3/4 of the way down the building. We need to have law enforcement deny access to the side delta of the building, side C notification of anybody in the back of the exposure problem on side C.
The regional hazmat teams don't relieve local governments of handling hazardous materials emergencies within their own jurisdiction. The teams are only dispatched when an incident meets minimum response criteria. Meanwhile, the Oregon Emergency Response System will notify the Department of Environmental Quality and other agencies as deemed necessary. Upon arriving at the scene, the teams will make contact with Incident Command, assess the situation by identifying the material and other associated hazards, and assist in containment.
The first thing team members do when they arrive is an incident size-up. They need to determine the amounts and types of chemicals that are involved. After analyzing, they form an action plan and execute the action plan. Team members must consider things like appropriate protective clothing, types of tools needed, neutralizing actions, and more.
Anhydrous, it's an A-level incident for us. We're going to send an entry team in A-level. We're going to suit up a backup team. We're going to set up our decon corridor, do an on-site recon to find out what's wrong. We're going to take the entry link in with us so that we can relay the pictures back out here to the company rep, and he can see what is the problem, and he can advise us then how we're going to fix it.
Safety. We've arrived at the board and we're about to go through. We have a good visual with the entry link. Copy, the valve is turned off. We're going to go for the second shut-off. You're headed for the second set of shut-offs. We have no further instructions. Return.
Once containment has been achieved, they will turn the site back over to the local agency and update ORS of the situation. The role of the local agency is always to coordinate local resources to support the hazmat team and coordinate communications between Department of Environmental Quality and the responsible party after containment.
The main goal of the hazmat team is safety. It's life safety for the team and for the public, environmental safety, and for property.
The state hazmat team program works in Oregon, and we look forward to its continued success.
As a fire chief in a smaller fire department here, small town of Sisters, and a rural area, we often get pushed to our limits, and particularly with volunteers and a few career staff, I can't tell you how much we value the state hazmat teams. Without them, our response to these very dangerous and technical types of incidents would compromise the safety of our employees and also the safety of the public. And I believe that they are a great asset to our community as well as the citizens of Oregon.
Local fire agencies contract with the Office of State Fire Marshal to provide this service. Before those agencies respond to an incident, you, as the first responder, must first make an initial size-up of the situation. Contact your 911 dispatch center or the Oregon Emergency Response System at 1-800-452-0311 with a hazardous materials response team request if a hazardous materials emergency exists and the incident cannot be controlled with your personnel or equipment. If you request a hazmat team, ORS will then notify the regional hazmat team in your area. When calling for a team, the information you provide will be used to determine the level of response. That response may be in the form of a telephone consultation, a partial team response, or a full team response. The teams are operational 24 hours a day and are funded by the state to provide support to local fire departments. A yes answer to any of the following questions allows for the automatic response of a regional hazardous materials emergency response team. Is this a transportation incident involving release or a potential release of an identifiable hazardous material? Is this a hazardous materials incident at a fixed site, such as a manufacturing facility with known hazards? Is this an incident with multiple victims, or an incapacitated victim, or victims of unknown cause? Is it a spill or release with known visible environmental impact, such as dead fish or vegetation? Is it a request by another state hazardous materials response team for backup? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, a hazmat team must be contacted. If all the answers are no, and you would still like a hazmat team response or consultation, please contact your local team for further evaluation. Upon activation, it is your responsibility to inform the team of the following information: the type of release, the identification of the material if known, if not known, a description of any markings on the container, the form of the material, that is it a liquid, a solid, or a gas, the amount and volume of release, what emergency medical resources are available, are there any injuries, and what action has already been taken. While waiting for the team to arrive, prepare the site by securing the perimeter from entry by non-authorized personnel, establish a cold zone, and make a water supply available for decontamination. Also have personnel ready to help prepare entry crews and assist with decontamination and monitor the point of entry. It is your responsibility as a local first response agency to establish an incident command structure and designate an incident commander. Upon arrival, the hazmat team does not take over incident command. Rather, they act as a resource to the incident commander. The team will require support from the agency with jurisdiction for activities such as decontamination assistance, diking, crowd and traffic control, water supply, and emergency medical resources. The hazmat teams don't provide cleanup activities, but they do provide containment and control. After the spill has been contained, cleanup is the responsibility of the local agency to facilitate cleanup by the responsible party and the Department of Environmental Quality. Hazmat teams work for Oregon. Their success is a direct result of a working partnership between local government, regional teams, the Office of State Fire Marshal, and the citizens that we serve. They have and will continue to provide an effective means to mitigate hazardous materials incidents anywhere in our state.